That's what I want from you, Lando. Good boy. That fight, we go. We're in a title fight here. If I'm going to catch up these positions, I need to bloody well go for it. And he did. I want that aggression. You need that aggression. It's all very well as going, after you, my love, after you. Everyone's a team here. We're McLaren. Everybody's lovely to each other. At some point, it's going to have to go into an actual title fight. And it did. So I loved the aggression and it was fair.
I agree. I really loved the aggression. Also, it's not like he sent him into the wall.
Exactly.
I think we'd be having a very, very different conversation if that's what happened. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Fast and the Curious with me, Betty Glover, and
Sorry,
Christian
just
Hugill.
one sec, phone. Sorry, hang on. Hello? Oh, again, Betty, again. Christian, we've been through this.
It's already rang me 3 times today.
No, Christian, we've been through this. There isn't a vacancy. Well, you'll have to try Sauber. I don't know what to say to you. There isn't a vacancy here. I know Andy Cowell's turned you down. I know. There's no... Christian,
tell him to try the Sky F1 pod. We don't have room.
Betty says try Sky. Look, there was no room at the inn, Christian. There's no room at the inn. There's no room for you here. I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah, love to Jerry. Bye-bye. 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 That's like the third time he's called me this weekend.
Anyway.
Andy Cowell says he's been chatting to everyone. Sorry, carry on.
Coming up, we'll dissect that Lando Oscar contact into turn 3, say well done to McLaren, who are Constructors' champions once again, and talk in depth about Aston Martin's determination to entertain us with their team radios. But we've got to get straight into it, because what a Singapore Grand Prix that was, everybody. We have got so much to talk about. Here is your top 10. George Russell dominated the race, his 5th win of his career. Max Verstappen took 2nd, despite a lot of pressure from Lando Norris, who took 3rd. Oscar Piastri finished 4th. Kimmy Antonelli 5th. Charles Leclerc 6th. Fernando Alonso, with his great radios, finished in 7th. Lewis Hamilton, after a 5-second time penalty, finished 8th. Ollie Behrman took 9th. And Carlos Sainz, with an unbelievable drive, by the way, started from P18. He overtook 5 cars in 10 laps. That is insane. He finished 10th. Wow. This is
insane.
It is insane. This is how the championship looks then, everybody. Oscar Piastri leads on 336 points. Lando Norris is 2nd on 314. That's 22 points behind him. Max Verstappen is 63 points behind, in 3rd on 273. We have 6 races left. This is getting very exciting.
Hi, I've not said hello yet because we had the phone call interruption. So, hi, I'm Christian Hugill. And Betty, we're chatting later than usual because we've both had very busy days. You've been doing sport. I've been running around the field. So we thought we'd have a wine, didn't we? Or a drink. We're recording late in the evening, aren't we? Cheers, end of the weekend. We're recording late, cheers, everyone. Hope you've all had a nice weekend. Cheers. I've got a beer because I'm a lad. Cheers, Betty.
Lad.
Producer Will's got a cup of tea because he's not as boozy as us. Yeah, cheers, Betty.
Fair play. Looks after his health, does Will.
Yeah, well, listen, I've run around the field today. I deserve a beer. Thank you very much.
Well, I've had to watch Aston Villa against Burnley, so I deserve a beer. Or wine.
You got wine, actually, don't you? Anyway, should we talk about Formula 1?
Yeah, I think we've got to start with McLaren, don't we? We? Constructors World Champions, brilliant. We'll talk about that in a second. But let's be honest, that has been massively overshadowed by that incident between Lando and Oscar on the opening lap. That is what everybody is going to be talking about. Norris getting up the inside of Piastri. Eventually, the two went wheel to wheel. How did you see it, Christian? How did it play out in your mind?
I'm delighted it happened for many reasons. So week after week on this pod, so when I said that Lando should have done more when Oscar messed up, I was described passionately as anti-Lando. And then you can get called anti-Piastri. So I'm just going to call it as I see it, right? If Lando Norris isn't going for that move, we can all pack up and go home. It's pointless as doing Formula 1. There was a big gap that Oscar left there, and he was tentative as hell going into that corner. And on a slippy track, where it's difficult track, Singapore, in difficult conditions at the start of a Grand Prix, Lando, without malice at all, stuck his nose up there, got the move done. And yes, the car moving in front was slow, was Max, because it's the start of the race, and there was a bit of contact with Max, which ricocheted him into Oscar. The contact was slight. And guess what, Oscar? Lando is fighting for a world championship here. So I am absolutely delighted that, to go back to Will Buxton's point in our last episode, there was a bit of grit between the teeth. And Lando went, I'm going to go for it, because I mentioned that criticism I got on the last episode for saying, Lando, I've just not seen quite enough from you. That's what I want from you, Lando. Good boy. That fight, we go. We're in a title fight here. If I'm going to catch up these positions, I need to bloody well go for it. And he did. I want that aggression. You need that aggression. It's all very well as going, after you, my love, after you. Everyone's a team here. We're McLaren. Everybody's lovely to each other. At some point, it's going to have to go into an actual title fight. And it did. So I loved the aggression, and it was fair.
I agree. I really loved the aggression. Also, it's not like he sent him into the wall. I think we'd be having a very, very different conversation if that's what happened. Now, on the radio, Oscar was like, that's not fair. That's not fair. If he has to avoid another car by crashing into his teammate, then that is a pretty shit job of avoiding. It's worth to say, though, he was a lot calmer about it after the race. He said he needed to watch it back before commenting on it. And
well, he was, but he still ducked the question spectacularly. So I still don't think he was very happy. Rachel was asking him in the pen all sorts, and he was just like, I'm not saying a word. So I still think he was a bit annoyed.
Yeah, to be fair, from where he probably saw it, how it played out in his mind, without having all of the context of what was sort of happening with Lando and Verstappen and how big the gap is, you could probably see why in the heat at the moment you would be really frustrated and annoyed by that. But I do reckon when he does watch it back, he's probably going to think, okay.
I hope so, because the whining of Formula One drivers on the team radio, I'm sure it's always happened. We just hear it now. But I hope Oscar looks at it and goes, oh, it was nothing major. It was fair enough, because as I say, if Lando isn't at least trying that, you're not winning the championship, mate. We all pack up and go home. This is motor racing. So, and I was watching the F1 TV feed with Jolyon Palmer and David Coulthard. You know, you've got two very good racing drivers there. They both said exactly the same as me. That was my instinct, was it's fine, it's fair, it's hard, it's the first few turns of a race when we're battling for a championship. So no, it was not unfair to me at all. It's the grit. It's exactly what I wanted to see from Lando that I don't think we've quite seen enough of. A little bit of grit. I was pleased to see it from Lando. Having criticised him before and got stick for it, that's what I was on about, guys. That's what I want to see.
I also think at this stage, if Lando hadn't have done that, then his head is not in
Give
it,
up.
is it? He had to do that. He saw the opportunity and he had to do it. I must say, Oscar's demeanour throughout the rest of the race did seem a little bit different. I haven't quite seen him maybe like that before, maybe a little bit down, I think. Is that fair to say, or am I probably overthinking that? Do you think it affected him?
I don't think you are overthinking it. I was really impressed. I mean, Tom Stallard, his race engineer, is a classy operator anyway. He's a fascinating, amazing man who's competed in other sports, and Tom was brilliant. Tom doesn't have to do this a lot, but Tom was going, okay, we control what we can control. Just calm, just move on. And Oscar went back again and said, yeah, but that wasn't fair. Move on, Oscar. So, listen, Betty, to your point, I can absolutely understand Oscar being a bit, because your teammates made contact with you. Fine. But what we saw from Oscar was a bit of I won't say retaliation, but his response was maybe a bit stronger than we've seen before. And now it's only slight. This isn't big criticism I'm giving him here. This is slight. It was the first time that maybe we started to see, because obviously we saw the heat of the battle in the mistakes he made in Baku, right? He made big mistakes. He had an awful weekend. But in terms of his demeanour, this was maybe the most obvious example of the heat of battle getting into him a little bit. And I wasn't that impressed by it. His Oscar's strength is keep calm, focus on me, do what I can do and move on. And he wasn't anything dramatic, but he didn't seem quite as able to do that after that incident. And even his demeanour later on the radio, he was a bit grumpy teenager. He was a bit
there was
who'd been told to clean his room. It was just a bit grumpy.
There was one point where his engineer said, like, what do you think here, or what do you want to do here? I can't remember the context of it. And Oscar was like, I don't know. I just don't know. You guys say. And it was
whatever.
just, he's never been like that before, has he?
No, and listen, I want to say at this point, this is a guy in only his third season in Formula One who has raced an unbelievable season and leads the World Championship because he is a phenomenal talent doing an amazing job. I'm so impressed by him. I'm such a fan of him.
Oh,
So
he's a legend.
He is amazing.
Legend.
So
Love
I
him.
don't want to come down too hard on him. But I felt, to go through it step by step, he's been too tentative into those first turns there. Too tentative. Lando's taken advantage of it. Yes, there was a bit of contact, but I'm sorry, that's racing. And then his response to it, we see this from Max sometimes, so we see it from the best, but move on. Stop getting grumpy, stop looking for excuses, move on, focus on what you can do. And it's the third weekend in a row after Italy, Baku, and now here we are in Singapore, where in the race, certainly, because it wasn't the case in qualifying, in the race, Lando has looked like he's got the edge. I don't care which of them wins the World Championship. I just want it to be close. That's all I want. I want a title battle. And just to finish, what we're seeing here, which is promising for the title battle, because let's be honest, over the course of the first 2/3 of the season, Oscar, more often than not, had the pace advantage. But again, 3 races in a row now, Lando is coming right back into it with his pace in this championship.
When I look at Oscar, I think he's had his best races when he's been in the lead and he's just controlling the race. And that's what he's really good at. He's really good at controlling the race. He's in the lead. He knows exactly what he's doing. He can stay really calm under that pressure. But he's in control. It feels like it's not as smooth sailing for him. And this is probably a really obvious thing to say because it would be like this for anybody. But when he's further back, do you know what I mean? And it's maybe just that experience of, I don't know.
And and we've seen evidence of that. And again, maybe we have to go back to the fact that he has not got the years of racing experience of the people he's battling for this championship, your Max Verstappen, your Lando Norris. So it's fair enough. Oscar's been phenomenal this season. Bloody love the man.
Incredible.
Just like I love Lando. And I'm not sitting on the fence here. I just want it to be close between them. But that was not Oscar Piastri's best Grand Prix, because I feel like he got in his own head a little bit. I feel like he was overcautious at the start of the race. I think he overreacted to the Lando move a little bit.
I mean, I would overreact to that in that heat.
Yeah, it's understandable. Listen, it's understandable. That said, his overall weekend, I said in the preview show, this is the biggest weekend of Oscar's career because of how bad Baku was. And because, again, to go back to Italy, Lando had the advantage. He broadly responded really well. He out-qualified Lando. The pre-practice sessions were messy anyway. This is a McLaren that does not seem to have an overall pace advantage anymore. I wonder if they've moved some development into next season, because that sheer pace advantage just doesn't seem to be there with the evidence of the last couple of Grand Prix. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out for the rest of the Grand Prix. So overall, listen, not a bad weekend for Oscar, but if I was in the Oscar Piastri camp, I'd be reminding him of his own strengths. Oscar, your own strengths are when you as a driver just keep cool. And I just didn't like the sort of clinging on to that Lando incident today. When he came back on the radio, just move on from it. Tom has been really clear. We'll have the opportunity to talk about it afterwards. And this is not the first time this season we've seen Oscar be a little bit cautious on the opening few turns. Cast your mind back to Imola. He was definitely caught napping by Max Verstappen. Granted, it was an amazing Max move. And
I forgot about that. I'm glad you reminded me of that.
Yeah, and Max got him in order to take the lead and went on to win the Grand Prix. So, bit overcautious at the start of the Grand Prix. Made a bit too much of it. Got in his head a little bit. I want Oscar to just remember what he's good at. But listen, overall, actually, there's a lot to praise both McLaren drivers for this weekend, because they've both had solid weekends. Lando deserves great credit for making up the places. Oscar has bounced back from an absolute shocker in Baku, and it wasn't an absolute shocker. A lot to be positive about for that. And actually, on another track, Lando would have overtaken Max as well. It's so difficult to
He was
overtake in
fast.
Singapore. Yeah, and it's difficult to overtake. It's not my favourite Grand Prix of the season, Singapore, because it's really difficult to overtake. So
It's not anyone's apart from George
no.
Russell's now, to be
Yeah,
honest.
listen, not a horrific weekend for McLaren, but I was just pleased to see a bit of spice between them, because actually I think it's inevitable. It's a championship battle.
Talking of spice, do you think the fight between these two is going to be a bit different going forward now?
I'll be really interested to see, because we're recording this in the evening. The only interviews with the drivers we've seen have been in the pen with Rachel Brooks on Sky, and on the Jenson Button podium interviews. They wouldn't go into it for obvious reasons. I'll be really interested come probably media day in Austin when we get Oscar's view on it. What I want from Oscar is to go, yeah, listen, the gap was there. The contact was unfortunate. It is what it is. And then I don't think there'll be that much of a change. But the flip side to what I'm just saying is there's only 6 races left now. It did feel like we came back from the summer break and it was like, oh, there's still loads of races left. When I was preparing for this episode, I was like, Christ, only 6 left. 22 points. That's not a big gap. Max would have... No, Max would have to... It would be a miracle, because he's got sprint races as well. Max, it would be a miracle. It's not impossible. The fact that he didn't take a big chunk out of them this weekend makes it even less likely, but still, let's imagine it's a Lando Oscar thing. I think inevitably it's going to be a bit different, Betty, because the stakes are getting higher and higher every single race. And I think we've seen that a bit from Oscar. I think we've seen it a bit.
That, and also now they've won the Constructors, maybe it's like, okay, well now you can battle it out because we've won the Constructors. That's done.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, yes, you're absolutely right, Betty, but that's sort of always been the case because we've always known they're going to win it because they just haven't got any competition for it. But yeah, it was a fascinating move, and for me, it was good, hard, fair racing. A little bit of contact sometimes. There's a reason we have racing incidents. If you're an Oscar fan, you're going to be saying, oh, it's outrageous Lando made contact. If you're a Lando fan, you're going to be saying he had to go for that move. Me calling it, as I say, don't care who wins. I think it was a racing incident. I think Lando's got to go for it. I think it was fair and square.
Yes, I don't think I haven't heard or listened to anybody disagree with you there. Like any former drivers as of yet, as I say, haven't been able to be across everything, but I haven't really seen anyone present a really strong argument that disagrees with you. I enjoyed it. Don't know if Zach Brown did as much. It is worth saying, though, that he had a brilliant evening anyway, because congratulations to McLaren. They are Constructors World Champions. We knew that they'd seal it at some point, didn't we? It's their 10th overall, which is pretty incredible. 2nd in a row. They've been in a class of their own this season, haven't they?
It used to feel like if you were going to make big strides in Formula One, you would do it over the winter. What McLaren have done is really, I wouldn't say change the game, but maybe change the game in the terms of rate of mid-season development. We're sat here, Betty, having this conversation in 2025. It's our 3rd season of The Fast and the Curious. I can still remember our first ever race debrief. And we were obviously...
I can't.
Yeah, I can, because it was Bahrain. And we'd done a lot with McLaren in the build-up, and we wanted and McLaren were dreadful, and it was like, oh god, it was like, and we'd done all this stuff with Oscar, and it was all like, and they've got this new and exciting driver lineup.
We were like, we've backed the wrong horse here, lads. Why have we got him with McLaren? Christ!
But, like the way that, and here we are in 2025, and they have turned it round so spectacularly over the course of the 23, 24 and now 25 season. The rate of change has been unbelievable. And what's truly impressive about it is it's the same drivers, and it's mostly the same people within that factory. This is a team that has clubbed together and has just improved in every single possible area. It is an achievement in their turnaround that stacks up to anything in Formula One history. It is remarkable McLaren have been nowhere for years. It's been Red Bull, it's been Mercedes, Ferrari have been, the ones that you think, are they going to battle them? McLaren have been nowhere, and they have, over the course of the last 2 years, re-announced to the world, we are back as major forces in this sport, like they were when I was growing up, Betty, watching Michael Schumacher v Mika Hakkinen. It's remarkable. Zach Brown has come in to a team that barely had sponsors on the car, that looked a shell of a Formula One team, that had lost drivers like Alonso and Button, and has single-handedly not single-handedly, that's unfair, but he's been the one that's driven it into having an identity in the papaya, attracting the sponsorship, galvanizing the team, putting people like Andrea Stella and Randy Singh in leadership positions. And,
big up Randy.
Yeah, we love Randy. You know, it is remarkable. They have done an amazing job. And yes, we give them a bit of stick for maybe over protecting the drivers in their title fight. But look back to Hamilton Rosberg, Ricardo Verstappen. I could go back to all of these flashpoint moments with two drivers that could win races. Actually, history tells us McLaren have handled it bloody well, and that's why they've won Constructors' Championships. When, all right, Red Bull have been up there, but they've not been able to keep two cars in contention. McLaren have. They have been sensational. Congratulations, McLaren.
It's a great point, actually, because a lot of people sort of moan and discuss about the way that McLaren are handling it and papaya rules and all of this stuff. But actually, maybe they're doing the right thing. Maybe this is actually the best for their two drivers, and they know their drivers better than anyone else. And I mean, they've won another constructors title, so it's clearly working. Anyway, we need to talk about the race winner, George Russell, don't we? He had a brilliant weekend, stunning drive. We'll debrief his weekend in a moment. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I am halfway through my glass of wine. I'm
like 2/3 of the way through this beer. I'm having a lovely time just chatting F1, having a drink. It's great.
Chugging
Nice
it
way to
down.
spend an evening.
Let's talk about George Russell then. It was a perfect race, wasn't it? His 5th win of his career. I am so happy for him. He did such a good job. He was brilliant out there this weekend. How impressed are you with him at the moment?
I think he might win the World Championship next season.
Oh, I'd love that. I'd love that.
From all the noise, and by the way, we don't know. This is wild speculation, but the noises coming out of Mercedes for next season are good. The point I'm making here is if they are good, they've got a title fighter there. It just doesn't often feel like George Russell leaves performance on the table. And obviously the racers like this will get the headlines because he's won the Grand Prix. But the fact is, Red Bull were really struggling with their setup this weekend. They admit themselves, our car struggles with Singapore. Look at how much Yuki struggled this weekend. Max, because he's Max, managed to drag it into second whilst visibly fighting it all weekend.
By the way, Max slapping Yuki, we need to talk about that later.
Well, yeah, we'll get onto that in a minute. But it summarises the point I'm making. We've got McLaren who weren't the overall quickest package. Ferrari were just Ferrari and not there. So it is a weekend where Mercedes have a shot here. But whether they've got a shot, if they should be getting third, George puts it third. If they should be have a chance of winning the race, George tends to take the chance to win the race. It was only a couple of years ago where George was making loads of mistakes. I think, go back to 23, 22, we'd see George quite crashy. I think one of them was in Singapore. We don't really see that from George Russell anymore. He's matured as a driver. He's had a very slow burner of a career. He had to sit at Williams for 3 years when they were really uncompetitive. Then he moved to Mercedes, and they've not had a car capable of fighting for titles since he moved. He stacked up so well against Lewis Hamilton. There was only one season together where Lewis comprehensively beat George. And last season, George was comfortably the better driver of the two. I could sit here and talk about how good George was this weekend because he was perfect. He had an amazing qualifying session. He executed it in the race brilliantly. And by the way, all of these Formula One drivers are superheroes. Just look how knackered they were at the end of this Grand Prix. If you're going to have a good Grand Prix, Singapore's the one to do it because it is such a physical, mental test of these incredible athletes that we are so lucky to watch over a weekend. Singapore sums that up better than any. So if you win that race, you've had an amazing weekend. But what the point I'm trying to raise is this shouldn't be a surprise because if George has half a chance to be there or thereabouts, he's ready to fight for a Formula One World Championship.
To me, George Russell is such an underrated driver. People do not talk about him enough. They do not talk about him enough. Until he wins a race, then maybe he gets some of the headlines. But still, he is brilliant. And since Lewis Hamilton left Mercedes, he has stepped up into that role in Mercedes, leading the team, which a lot of people questioned whether or not he could do,
Yeah.
didn't they? Remember, a lot of people were like, Mercedes have got Kimmy Antonelli coming through, a young driver. Is George Russell going to be able to step up in that role? And he has, and he's done a brilliant job.
Bang on,
And
Betty, bang on.
he still hasn't signed a new contract, has he, Christian?
No, I get a lot of DMs about this. Don't worry, George Russell fans. George Russell will be a Mercedes driver next year, and I shall tell you for why. They've neither have got another option. If you look at the driver market, it's not like Mercedes, even if they wanted to, which they don't, could come in and go, okay, in that case, you come in and replace him. It's not like there's Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen is there without a contract. That's not happening. George hasn't got anywhere else to go. It's not like George could, George knows the rumours about Mercedes engine package for 2026 and that being a place where you want to be. George isn't going to go anywhere else. But I think because both sides know it's going to happen eventually, I think you're probably in a situation where, I don't know, it might be win bonuses, it might be commercial time in terms of time doing interviews and things and working with sponsors, whatever. There's some details I've not thrashed about. I would be astonished if George Russell isn't at Mercedes next year. And the biggest part of that is, Betty, because Toto Wolff isn't stupid either. My goodness me. He knows that this guy is capable of leading his team. George has been great this year. George has had such a good year. And I remember when he was announced that he was taking over Valtteri, because I love Valtteri Bottas, but you knew Valtteri wasn't going to beat Lewis. So all of a sudden, coming into the 2022 season, you've got, oh, wow, and also George could fight Lewis for a title as well as Lewis fighting Max for a title, and it was all going to be so exciting that you could see George fighting for a title. We've been robbed of that. It's a storyline we've been robbed of. So I so hope Mercedes are up there because I want to see George in this title mix with Lando, with Oscar, with Max, who knows, with Charles and Lewis, because he's in that bracket. Your drivers capable of fighting for championships. He's right up there.
I also love that he's unapologetically not very cool. I don't even know if he realises he's not very cool.
I'll be honest with you. I don't think he realises quite how uncool he is. But
I love it.
I love the man. Yeah, I have always been a George Russell fan. The first Formula One driver I ever interviewed before he was a Formula One driver, but my first, he'd just been announced at Williams back in the day when this was all fields.
It was old George Russell.
So yeah, I'm a big fan of George. I think he's had a great weekend, great season, and he'll be at Mercedes next year. Don't worry about it, guys.
I think it's sad that he didn't do the yabba dabba do when he won because that's iconic George Russell. Also, what I love about this as well is that obviously F1, Christian, is such a technical sport, isn't it? They use so much data, they analyse everything. But afterwards, George was just like, I don't know why this performance was so good. I don't know where this performance came from. He didn't expect it at all.
I mentioned this at the start. I think it's a lot to do with the fact that I don't think the Mercedes is overly uncomfortable in Singapore. But I think the Red Bull really is. And I think McLaren's pace has dropped a bit. And therefore, it sort of leaves the opportunity. And Mercedes been like, yeah, we're pretty much as we are, I think. I could be completely wrong with that assessment. But Mercedes that's where they are this season. This being their second win. They're ahead of Ferrari pace-wise. They are there or thereabouts at tracks which suit their car better. And, it's a half an hour explanation as to why certain cars suit certain circuits.
Well, don't do that because I don't have time for that.
No, it's late. But characteristics of the particular sort of tarmac used on the circuit, configuration of fast, slow corners, weather conditions, all of this factors in to whether a car suits a particular track. And Mercedes, their pace is such that they're just a bit behind Max in the Red Bull and the McLarens. So that if either of those had a bad day, they're going to pick up the odd win. They're going to pick up podiums. That's just where they are this season. What I'm just hoping for next year is they'll be a step ahead of that.
Solid weekend for Kimmy Antonelli as well, P5.
Yeah, we remember coming back off the summer break, this was one of the big talking points of us going, he's really struggled since he got the podium, really struggled. He's just not looked like a Mercedes number 2 driver like he did at the start of the season. He's really turned that around, and I think that's so impressive. And the fact he overtook the Ferraris today really solid weekend, much better from Kimmy Antonelli. If he continues this form to the end of the season, he's going into his second season in Formula One in a really strong place. And just remember the sort of step up we had with Oscar Piastri from season 1 to season 2. If Kimmy ends this season like he's done this year, looking pretty good, and then takes a step up over the next year, all is well for Kimmy Antonelli. I'm really impressed with the way he's turned it around. There's another really solid weekend from him, like Baku.
All is well for Kimmy Antonelli. We've had so many nice comments, Christian, from our last episode with Will Buxton.
Yeah, people love Will Buxton. Thank you so much for all the lovely comments about the episode. Thank you to Will for coming on. And lots of people enjoyed us paying tribute to Roscoe. There was one YouTube comment I saw that was like, first time I've tuned into this channel, 5 minutes of talking about dogs. It's not for me. Yeah, that's true. If you don't like dog chat, this podcast isn't for you.
But to be honest, we chat about everything and anything. So it just so happens that you tuned in and we were talking about Roscoe. Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine. And listen, unapologetically, Roscoe was a legend.
And it was a man.
Of course, it was a man. We are a big fans of dogs. Roscoe was the world's most famous dog. So we also asked for your pet-related F1 stories. Boy, did we get them. Of course we got. It proves that most of our listeners love it because, my God, the inbox is like,
I hope that guy's not listening.
Mr_Dave_Hill. I have a very energetic Cocker Spaniel called Juan Pablo after Juan Pablo Montoya. This is brilliant. This is such niche levels of F1 drivers from 15 years ago. That's why it's brilliant. I love a niche name. Also, it's brilliant because this guy's in the park going, Juan Pablo, Juan Pablo.
You'd have to call it Pablo. Pabs.
Yeah, but Juan or Pablo is still amazing to be shouting in the park.
It is.
Shah2E. I have a Westie named Russell after George, and he likes a good pose too. If you're watching on YouTube, here is Russell the Westie. Here he is. Oh, he does love a pose, doesn't he? He is standing proud as punch in a green field on a sunny day. There's Russell the Westie.
He looks cute.
He does look cute. And a Tyrrell's tidbit for you from producer Will. His first pet guinea pig was named Michael after Michael Schumacher. I just don't know why a guinea pig called Michael. Feels, but what's your guinea pig's name? Michael. Lovely.
Stuart McDonald got in touch. He said that they've got a 2-year-old Yorkie called Wolfie after Toto Wolff.
Sorry, Wolfie looks so camp with his little. Wolfie's got, for those listening, like a little like a hair bobble in the middle, and it's the least Toto Wolff-like dog in the world, which is why I love it.
that is not what I pictured in my head when you say a dog's called called after Toto Wolff. Breezy724 says my son has 2 goldfish named Yuki and Max. He is actually a Lewis fan. Why, if he's a Lewis fan, why has he called them Yuki and Max?
Because Yuki's a great name for a fish.
Also, I think Max will end up eating Yuki. Goldfish do that, don't they?
Are we back to F1 chat now, or is this?
Sari Ware, apologies if I didn't say that right, said Bruce McKitten after the McLaren team found Bruce McLaren. I like that. That's clever. That is
Bruce
clever.
McKitten after Bruce McLaren. Oh, lovely. Bruce, we've got a picture of what appears to be Bruce McKitten asleep in what appears to be a bucket.
Oh,
you sleep where you like, Bruce.
Cats will sleep anywhere.
They really will. But the best one of these goes to Natalie Fashion. So this is Lando the Labrador. And here is his reaction to Lando winning the British Grand Prix. For those listening to us, Lando the Labrador is sat in front of the telly as Lando the F1 driver is on the podium having won the Grand Prix. Just watch and listen to this.
Oh my God. That is incredible. That is incredible.
It's like
Oh my God.
But Betty, the best one of these, we've tried to get hold of this person. Now, Greg James, our third wheel on this podcast, who is not on this week because he's on a tour of the UK plugging his new book. He's also interviewed Taylor Swift this week. But
he's a busy man.
Greg sends a message to the group on one of these, on one of his sort of, he's doing these shows to plug the book, and he's obviously been a book show. Yeah, he's been meeting Fast and Curious fans. So hello, if you've been talking to Greg. And what did we learn from Greg this week, Betty?
He met a lady that has a dog called Betty.
After you.
Is it after me?
Yes.
I didn't want to be arrogant and just assume that.
Somebody who listens to this podcast is such a fan of this podcast that they have named their dog Betty. Now, I said to Greg, can we please get this person on the podcast? And I don't think Greg... Oh, hang on. Is this Claire? Claire, right. Will, I'm going to send you these pictures and we can flash them up on the screen. Now, here is Claire with a gorgeous white fluffy looking dog called Betty. There you go, Claire. Thank you, Claire.
Shout out to Claire and Betty.
Absolutely wonderful. Betty, how do you feel?
So
Let's just get your
funny.
analysis on this. How do you feel that you've got a dog named after you?
I was honestly astounded. I was speechless, but I love it. Thank you, Claire. I appreciate it. Is it solid dog name? I'd say.
I think you know this about me. I'm not a jealous type at all. I am actually feeling panges of jealousy here for the fact that you've got a pet named after you. I think that's amazing.
Oh, I know. I'm buzzing, to be fair. Thank you very much, Claire. I'm honoured. By the way, just if anyone was watching I think it was 2 episodes ago, my dog McGinn ended up coming on screen.
Yes, he did. McGinn was on.
I was at Aston Villa Burnley. This is very niche. Only a few people are going to appreciate it.
In the Premier League, yeah.
And I was stood in the tunnel, and all the players were walking out ready to get, to start the game. They're stood in the tunnel.
Match.
John McGinn walks past me, and I've interviewed him a couple of times, but I didn't really think he knew that much. I didn't think he'd recognise me or whatever. I mean, he'd recognise me, but just being...
And let's just say at this point, your dog is named after the Premier League footballer John McGinn.
John McGinn clocks me, comes over, says, "Hi, how are you? How's the dog?"
John McGinn knows who McGinn is!
He knows who McGinn is. I was like, oh my God. And then I thought, is this a bit mortifying? Does he think I'm like a massive Aston Villa fan, like bit of a weirdo? I don't know, but... And I panicked and I went, yeah, he's okay, thanks.
Oh, John McGinn's people, come on the podcast, please. I would absolutely love this. Oh, there you go. I tell you what, I'm sorry if you don't like this, the podcast isn't for you. That was amazing dog content. We will go back to Formula One stuff and we'll do Betty's Radio Radar and we'll look at who's slipped under the radar in Christian's cubbyhole in just a minute. Welcome back to the Fast and the Curious. We're going back to debriefing the Grand Prix, having been a bit distracted by dogs. We mentioned at the start, me and Betty have been out doing stuff today, and Betty rings me when she's on the way back from the aforementioned Premier League football match, and I'm on the way back from running around a field. And Betty goes, "Have you seen the result?" I was like, "Yeah, I've seen who won, but I've not seen anything else, so I'm going to go watch it before we do the podcast." And Betty just goes, with the most excited tone in her voice, Betty goes, "Radio Radar is amazing because of Aston Martin." She was so excited. But before we get to Aston, my DMs exploded in practice because of Radio Radar. We normally, This is the bit, if you're new to the podcast, we always pick our favourite bits of radio. This normally is from the race, but practice, outstanding from Oscar Piastri here.
I think Oscar Piastri might have done the best Radio Radar out of the whole season. I think he might win the award. In practice, he said, "I was going to say the knob is quite stiff, but didn't think that would be appropriate for TV." Now, Oscar Piastri, you knew exactly what you were doing when you said that. You knew exactly what you were doing. He definitely had a smile on his face.
Absolutely stunning. And then Aston were just incredible because Betty, you pointed it out to me on the phone. Betty told me about this. This is
I got tagged in it. People are tagging me in all of these, going, "Oh my God, you need to listen to Alonso's Radio Radar." So I was
this feature is getting a mind of its own, isn't it? But lap 34, when Alonso goes, "If you speak to me every lap, I'll disconnect the radio." Absolutely wonderful.
No, but the engineer was just going, 34 to go.
But surely they've been working together ages. Surely they've got this down by now as to how much he wants that. Surely he either gets a lap countdown or he doesn't. But then also... Then there was Fernando as well when he was battling with Isaac.
Yeah.
And he was like,
Yeah.
shout out to the hero of the weekend. It's like, oh, Fernando, come on, it's racing. It's literally what you'd have done, battling
But
away.
also, back to when Alonso said, if you speak to me every lap, I will disconnect the radio. He wasn't even saying that in a jokey way. It was so incredibly deadpan.
It was so
And he
funny.
was like, if you speak to me every lap, I will disconnect the radio.
And then I forgot to write it down, but the Lance Stroll one as well, which was just made funnier by his accent.
Oh, what was that?
Oh, did you miss this? So, I can't remember who it was. I'm sorry, I forgot to write it down. But somebody was in front of Lance, and they said his tyres. I even forget the compound. I've done I say this when you're off. I'm absolutely crap at doing this feature. But Lance was trying to overtake a Formula One car. They went so-and-so in front on the so-and-so tyres is struggling. And Lance just went back in such a loud Canadian way, just went, yeah, well, my medium tyres feel like they're shot as well. It was just so like, oh, Lance isn't having a nice time, is he? Now, also, I mentioned I was watching the F1 TV stuff, so I didn't see this, but apparently Martin Brundle interviewed Lewis Capaldi.
Yeah. This is the best grid walk interview that I've seen this season. Martin Brundle went up to Lewis Capaldi, or who he thought was Lewis Capaldi. It was actually Lewis Capaldi's brother, and goes, all right, Lewis, blah, 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 blah. Lewis Capaldi's brother goes, oh, I'm actually Lewis Capaldi's brother. Lewis Capaldi has stood right behind his brother, and it's just like, hi. It was just absolutely classic. Martin
Stunning
Brundle.
work.
Brilliant magic.
I really sympathise in those situations because I think I've been on the grid before a race like 4 times. It is insane. And what appears so obvious on the telly is just not obvious. So I have every sympathy there.
They do
Martin
look
Brundle.
quite similar.
Do they? I didn't see this, yeah.
But Lewis Capaldi was behind. Also, why is Lewis Capaldi always sweaty? I mean, I know it was hot there, but every time I see him, he's sweaty.
At Fast Curious Pod, if you can answer that one. I don't know. As many things I can answer questions on this podcast, that's not one of them, Betty. I've got nothing for you. I'm sorry.
I really like Lewis Capaldi. Anyway, should we dive into your cubbyhole? Because I think there's things that I probably have missed from this race that you can enlighten me on.
I just want to highlight a few things. Ollie Behrman had a really, really good weekend. His best qualifying of the season, I think, in P, and then a P9 finish. He also put in an absolutely brilliant move at one point on, I think it was Alex Albon during the race. So Ollie Behrman was absolutely fantastic. Also, we've just been laughing at his sassy radio, but Fernando Alonso, that Aston Martin doesn't look competitive. They've not, they are struggling. That they are looking to the new rule changes now. Fernando dragging that, granted after a Lewis 5-second time penalty, Fernando dragging that to 7th. That was a real weekend of Fernando reminding us he's still in this sport, and I'm excited to see what he could do at the age he's at if this car got next year. And then also Carlos Sainz, who for obviously a second weekend in a row, granted it was a podium last weekend, now it's P10, but almost as impressive actually. Williams are very good at this. They've done this with Alex Albon in the past in going, we will pit approximately 9 seconds before the checkered flag, and just making it work. And we've seen Alex be heroic in his ability to do this in the past. This time it was Carlos' turn. So starting from P18, some brilliant overtaking, excellent strategy from Williams. And it's just not because obviously they got thrown out of qualifying for a technical infringement, which is all very unfortunate when things like that happens. So to grab a point out of that, it's just nice that it's coming together for Carlos at Williams. So yeah, lovely. I'm
loving the Carlos success so far. I think it's brilliant.
But I said this last time with Greg on the last debrief, Betty. I always thought it was going to come. Like I always had no doubt it was going to come. It just seems to be all coming together now. So yeah. Absolutely lovely stuff. And also on my radio radar, another thing that I was delighted lit up my DMs over the weekend. It was lovely because I've been doing other work this weekend, which I'll talk about at some point on this podcast. So I've been a bit out of it, like not quite as dialed in as I would normally be because I've ironically been doing other Formula One work. But what I've loved is our listeners sort of keeping us honest and being like, have you seen this? And my phone lit up when Leah Block won her first F1 Academy race on Saturday.
Yes, go on, Leah.
Absolutely
well
amazing.
deserved.
So we're so pleased for Leah, who's just, she is getting better and better and better. Like her sheer pace in that series. Identical cars. We've spoken on this podcast before about the challenges of going from different race series like Leah's done. Outstanding from Leah Block this weekend. Really brilliant.
If you want to know a little bit more about Leah Block, we've got her on this podcast quite a few times. I interviewed her, it might have been last year. You interviewed her very, very recently. So just have a scroll back, especially on YouTube, and go and check it out because she's brilliant.
The last time we had her on, so we had her on when she had her first podium, but it was for like 2 minutes. But then the last time we had her on was a bit more of an in-depth chat, it's such an interesting story, Leah's story, and such an impressive thing to have gone from rally to sort of tarmac racing like she's done. So you're right, Betty, absolutely brilliant.
Anyway, I've finished my glass of wine, so we'll finish this episode.
Next up, so we're back to preview the US Grand Prix. It's not 100% confirmed, so I won't say yet, but we think we've got an exciting guest on who I love, who I'm excited to bring onto the podcast. So we'll preview Austin, and then we'll debrief Austin, and for the debrief, I'll be there, which is always fun. So
it's really exciting.
For you, it'll be late night again, like this one. You'll be doing late night podding. I'll be doing mid-afternoon podding. And I bloody love Austin. It's brilliant. So I'm excited to talk to you from Austin.
Brilliant. I'm very much looking forward to it. Everyone, don't forget to subscribe, tell everybody, tell your mates about all of our episodes. It really, really does help.
It really does help. If you've got an F1 fan friend, I should say, don't presume they know about us. Please do tell your mates. By the way, if you like F1, this podcast here, it really does help. Good old-fashioned word of mouth.
It's all getting a bit beggy now, isn't it? So a bit desperate.
You've got to.
So I think we'll end it here.
Have you seen how many F1 podcasts there are? There's loads, and most of them are
It's
awful.
a saturated market.
So it really is. So listen, you've got to tell people. Not everyone's going and showing videos of dogs barking to Lando Norris. This is high quality stuff.
Have a good one, guys. Thank you so much for listening.
Oh, hang on one sec. Betty's ringing again. I'm not even going to answer it. It's speaking of beggy, it's embarrassing at this point. Bye, everyone.